you know, hopefully we will have some good content for our audience. I see Chancellor Pierre, so I think we're all set. Hello, and thank you for joining Protecting Innovation Pathways to Becoming a Patent Attorney. I'm Tim Wilson. I'm Director of Patents at SAS. SAS is a large privately held software company that is headquartered in Cary, North Carolina. We are an analytics company helping our customers analyze their data and learn things about their business that they wouldn't otherwise know. At SAS, I lead the patent team, and we have two other members of the patent team, patent attorneys, and we perform basically two functions. One is obtaining patents, and we'll talk a little bit about how that's done. Sometimes that's referred to as patent prosecution. And then we handle anytime disputes come up, and there is something called patent litigation, and we'll get into how that works. We really have a great event in store today, but before we dive into it, I want to share a couple of housekeeping items. This meeting will be recorded, and we'll send out the link to y'all afterwards so that you can rewatch it or share it with others. If you've not already muted, please mute your line and stay on mute throughout the entire presentation. You're welcome to unmute yourself at the end when we open up for Q&A if you have a question for the panel. If not, you can submit the question anytime during the presentation through the chat box. That's located at the right of your screen. Last, after the event, for those who have participated in the event, we'll be raffling off one-on-one coaching sessions with the panelists, and you'll see we have tremendous panelists who have joined us today, and a $50 gift card for one lucky participant. So, like I said, we have a really great event today, and you know, I wanted to share that this would not be possible without the following organizations. First, the Patent Training Foundation, the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, Amgen, Apple, Carpenter Technologies, Facebook, SAS, and the Southern University Law Center. We really appreciate all of their participation, and we, you know, wouldn't be able to put on this world-class event without their help. All right, you'll have the opportunity to hear from very successful IP leaders across a variety of industries, and be watching during the presentation and listening for the differences, particularly amongst the various types of companies that are represented here, and how they may, you know, kind of differently approach patent protection in their particular industry, and also the importance level of patenting within their industry. We're going to talk about each one's journey to the field of patent law, the value of patent law, and what skills, background, and abilities make for a successful patent attorney. And then I also want to talk for a few minutes about a scholarship opportunity for law school for folks who are going to go down this path to patent. That's available through the Patent Training Foundation and Thurgood Marshall College Fund. All right, so without further ado, let's meet our panelists. We're going to go around the horn and make some quick introductions. If you want to check out their full bios for all of the presenters, that's on the event the website, and I really encourage you to take a look at the background and experience of all the great panelists here. So let's just have a moment and go around the horn. We're going to start with Chancellor Pierre from Southern University Law Center. Chancellor, do you want to take a second and introduce yourself? You might be on mute.
Oh, am I on mute?
There you are.
Okay. Let's start all over again. Good afternoon. I'm John Pierre, Southern University Law Center. I'm the chancellor of this great law center. That what we do at Southern University Law Center is that we build great patent lawyers. We take people who have technology backgrounds, STEM backgrounds, and we help them become patent lawyers. So we're kind of on the front end of the process. And I'm glad to be here this afternoon and working with all of my colleagues here, Mr. Wilson at SAS, and everyone else here who has helped us really do what we do well at Southern University Law Center.
Thank you, Chancellor. And I'm just going to go alphabetically by first name. So, Adelani?
At least on my end, my name is Atalani Kinkotu. I'm a lead patent counselor here at Facebook. Before being at Facebook, I was at Kilpatrick Townsend, where I practiced for about 4.5, 5 years in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Previously went to NC State, got a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering, and then went on to Wake Forest University for law school. And very, very excited to be part of this panel today and get a chance to talk with some really great minds and share some really good insight, hopefully. So thanks for having me.
Great, thank you. And Betsy?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. My name is Betsy Burton-Strunk. I'm the Vice President of Development at Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We work with the 47 publicly supported historically Black colleges and universities, providing scholarships and internship programs, other talent sourcing services, working with each of the folks that you see on the call here today. So look forward to a great session, and thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. And David?
Hi, everyone. My name is David Malaw. I am Apple's Senior Director of Intellectual Property Litigation. I run a team of attorneys who handle all of Apple's patent, copyright, and trademark litigation worldwide. I've been at Apple for 10 years now, and before that, I was at a firm called Morrison Forrester in San Francisco for 10 years. Before that, I got my undergraduate degree in religion, if you'll believe it, and I'll talk about that a little more later in the program, from Dartmouth, and then went on to law school at Harvard. I'm very pleased to be here.
Thank you, David. And Dwight? Dwight, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, great. So I'm Dwight Thompson from SAS, and Tim and I have been working together for a number of years in the patent group, and also in terms of mentoring students, getting students interested in patent law, and we're happy to have you all on the call today. This is actually my second career. I was actually a circuit designer before this, and I got interested in patent law at a later date. And before that, I was also at Fisher & Richardson for about 10 years in San Diego and Washington, D.C.
Thanks, Dwight. And that's a really good point. We've heard that from a number of folks on the call, that we both, right now, we have, I think all of the panelists are in-house counsel. That means we work for a corporation and the corporation's our only client. There are also outside, we call outside counsel, which are lawyers who work for a law firm. And generally, and I think probably this is likely true for most folks on the call, we would start our careers at an outside counsel, a law firm, scenario, and then move to an in-house counsel position at a company. And so right now we have a number of company lawyers, and but we've all had the background of being outside counsel as well. And that's kind of an important distinction that folks might find interesting. Let's continue with Mike.
Hey all, thanks for joining us this afternoon. So I started off like others as in a different career. I was a scientist. When I first got out of undergrad, I did work on vaccines and then switched over to cancer research. And that was where I got exposed to patent law, made the transition by jumping to the U.S. Patent Office as a patent examiner. And from there, sort of worked my way through law school, went to a firm in D.C. called Stern Kessler. It's a pretty well-known patent boutique. And then made the jump in-house from there. First to a company called Metamine, which was acquired by AstraZeneca. And then from AstraZeneca, I jumped to Amgen. And it's a great career. I highly encourage people who are considering it to look into it more. I look forward to talking to people about it.
Thanks, Mike. James?
Hey everyone, kind of a well-trod story at this point. Started my career in oil tech as a chemical engineer for a company called Schlumberger. After that, went to law school. After law school, spent some time at a firm, Denton's law firm, moved around. I was in St. Louis for a bit, Chicago for a bit, Washington, D.C. for a little while. Eventually moved over to the International Trade Commission in Washington, D.C. And then after that, landed at Apple, where I've been for 5 years, currently senior counsel in the patent litigation group.
Thank you, James. Rachel? Rachel, you might be on mute.
Everyone, this is Rachel Thompson.
Great.
I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer for Carpenter Technology, which is a company that's over 130 years old, publicly traded, and we make metal solutions for a variety of industries, including aerospace and the medical industry. And yes, you heard me correctly, human resources. And so, I am pretty much a rando when it comes to patent law. I started off my career in patent law. I started as a scientist, became a patent agent, focusing on drafting patent applications for inventors and companies. And then from there, I switched over to the dark side and became a patent litigator for several law firms. And recently, I became the Chief Human Resources Officer for a publicly traded company. My trajectory has not been traditional. I basically relied on my training in patent law just to be flexible, to be nimble, and to try different things. And I encourage you all to consider a career in patent law because the possibilities, in a very cliche-ish way, are absolutely endless. Had you told me over 20 years ago I'd be sitting here as a Chief Human Resources Officer, I don't think I would have taken that bet.
Thanks, Rachel. Let's get to Shane to round out the panel.
Hello, everybody. I guess my path is somewhat similar to the path that you heard of others. Started out as a quality engineer at IBM in Rochester, Minnesota. Became interested in patent law, so went to law school at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Should also mention I am an HBCU grad. I got my electrical engineering degree from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. So after I got my law degree from UNC, had worked at a firm in Spokane, Washington, one in Richmond, Virginia called Hunt & Williams, and then subsequently worked at Kilpatrick, Townsend & Stocking, same law firm as Tulane, before making the transition in-house to Facebook. I've been at Facebook a little over 2.5 years now, and I am on the intellectual property litigation side. So we manage all of the patent, copyright, trademark, trade secret litigation for Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and our AR/VR team. I'm very happy to be here and honored to be here with these members on this panel.
Thank you, Shane. And hang on for a second. We're going to come right back to you with the first question. So what I wanted to do is just kind of give our folks on the phone or online here a little bit of background on kind of exactly what a patent is and why it's important to our business. And again, this is one of those times where I want to kind of talk about maybe some of the differences between how it's important to, say, a tech company like Facebook and, a difference in a biotech company like Amgen. And also, I'd like to hear from Rachel again after this about, what maybe a manufacturing company like Carpenter Technologies might think about when we're talking about, patent protection. So let's start with the tech side, and Shane, if you don't mind, maybe starting off on why patents might be important to a company like Facebook.
So, I mean, fundamentally, a patent is basically a property right. It is something that covers the technology that your engineers and your software developers are going out and spending time in building on behalf of the company. So it really provides that protection that you need. So essentially, but for having a patent, we could go out and we could spend, the millions of dollars that we and other companies like Apple spend on research and development to really build the technologies that, honestly, that our consumers use daily. And we could spend that money and make that investment and potentially not have any protection for that, so that others could freely use it. So that the patent really, it is your kind of commitment. You are going and you are filing something called a patent application with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. There's kind of a large process called patent prosecution, where kind of what you hope for may get narrowed, but essentially what you ultimately obtain is just a property right that kind of covers that technology and that invention that the engineers and software developers have really developed. Kind of in practice, so you get this property right, this kind of great patent. In practice, others can freely use that property right. However, you have to go out and enforce it. So if you see that somebody is using the patent, using technology, or developed something that kind of reads on your invention, and they're using that in the public, you could possibly go out and assert that patent against them. Probably providing more detail than you need, but essentially kind of at a fundamental level, really the patent really is kind of the lifeblood of technology companies like ours, and it really ensures that you have protection for all of that technology that is being developed internally.
Excellent. So let's kind of get a little bit of a different flavor maybe from Mike on what you guys see at Amgen as the importance of patents there.
Yeah, so in the pharmaceutical industry and the biotech industry, we always say patents are the lifeblood of the industry, and that is because it is an incredibly difficult and competitive industry with very long timelines to get products launched.
Mike, it's a little difficult to hear you. Could you maybe speak up a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's better. Yes.
All right. So our industry has incredibly long timelines. If you look at the average to launch a product, right? So a new drug, when you see these commercials on TV for a new drug, on average, it takes 10 to 15 years from start to finish to bring that drug to market. And sort of more frustrating is that about 90% of the work we do in the industry is failure. That's just the nature of science. Those of you who are in science understand your experiments don't work. Your ideas don't always pan out. So you have a tremendous failure rate, tremendously long timelines, and then on top of it, your average cost to bring a drug to market is $2.6 billion with a B dollars. So a massive investment. I think Shane summed it up perfectly. If you don't have a patent to protect that investment, what happens? you go out of business immediately, because we could spend 15 years and $2.6 billion to bring a drug to market, and somebody else could come along and copy it without having to spend that time and that investment. So for us, patents are a fundamental part of the industry.
Excellent. Rochelle, I know you're in HR now, and so that's kind of a different aspect of law, but if you might share just a little bit about how patents might be important to a manufacturing company that could be a little different than we've heard so far.
Actually, it is not so much different from what you've heard from my panelists. So sitting as in HR, I'm in more of a business role. And in that business role, I really do see the importance of patents. We are a solutions provider, and having a patent portfolio that protects our metal alloys, that protects the way we manufacture and process our metals is critically important to making sure we have a competitive advantage in our market. It's very important in how we structure our business relationships and the customers that we partner with. So when we're partnering with these customers to develop these solutions for, let's say, the medical industry as an example, we need to have some type of comfort in knowing that when we partner with them, those customers are not going to pirate our technology, right? So there's a protective aspect. And then importantly, we need to be thinking forward. And so we're looking out 5-10 years out to see what area of technology we need to go and capture as part of our strategic advantage for the company as a whole. And so patents are really and truly instrumental in our forming those relationships, setting our strategy for the company, and our bottom line. So it impacts the business as a whole. And so sitting in the CHR role, I understand more today than what I did 20 years ago, the impact of that on the stock price, the impact of that on the performance of the company, et cetera. So it is absolutely critical from that perspective as well.
Oh, thank you, Rochelle. That's great. And maybe a little bit of a different flavor. We've kind of talked about obtaining patents and why they're important. How about maybe defending your company and maybe another aspect of a legal career? David, do you want to talk about maybe patent litigation as a path and why it's important at Apple?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I run a team of litigators who both we both bring affirmative cases against others, and we defend against cases that are brought against Apple. So in the first instance, if we feel like someone has taken intellectual property of ours, has copied the way we do things, we have the option of bringing a suit and asserting a patent, a trademark, a copyright, some form of intellectual property right. And then there are instances in which someone else feels that Apple has done the same, that we have taken someone else's intellectual property, and they bring suits against us. So it's my team's responsibility to handle that sort of thing. An important concept to, I think, all of the companies that are on this panel, Apple included. Apple is at its heart an intellectual property company. We're a software and a hardware company, an entertainment company, and in all of that, intellectual property lies at its heart. I mentioned in my introduction that I do not have any formal technical training. I don't have an undergraduate degree in the sciences, and so I'll hold this out as an example of a path you can still pursue even if you're not in the sciences presently in your education. I had an undergraduate degree in religious studies and had thought for a time about becoming a teacher or professor, and ended up going to law school. And in litigation in particular, you need the ability to explain technology, explain your case to a jury of your peers, to a lay audience. And there's the possibility that an education outside the sciences gives you something of a grounding in that. And my colleague James is on the phone with me as well. I'll turn it over to him to add his own supplement on litigation.
Sure. Thanks, David. Some of the things I think that are interesting about patents in general and specifically their role in business is, if you take a company like Apple that is typically moving very quickly, our product cycles are much shorter than what you would see in pharmaceutical industry, but yet the roadmaps and the strategic planning does go out quite a ways. And a thing that patents do provide is some assurance to the business that there are certain avenues and certain directions that are safe to plan for. If we have intellectual property, if we have patent rights to certain technologies, then it's okay to invest money in developing products that draw from that. And so that's an important role of patents as well. In terms of the litigation context, one of my favorite parts of the job are these discussions we have, usually very early in the case, where we're looking at patents and we're trying to figure out, where are the boundaries of what's been claimed in a patent. Oftentimes, the person who's bringing the patent believes one thing, and the parties who are defending against that assertion believe something quite different. And so that conversation and analysis is one of my favorite parts of being a litigator, and seeing how that plays out over the course of a litigation is pretty interesting.
Excellent. Thanks, James, and thanks, David. That was great. So let's shift gears just a little bit and go to Talani again about. I really want to understand what it's like, just kind of the day in the life of a patent lawyer or a patent litigator, and just kind of what's your favorite thing about your job, and how do you of being a patent lawyer. That'd be terrific background, I think.
Yeah, so I'm more on the patent prosecution side, so I'm more on the side of helping prepare and file patent applications at the patent office, and so not so much involved with litigation. So for me, I think there's a huge portion of your daily work that involves a lot of reading and writing. I think those are probably the two things I spend most of my day doing, is reading and digesting information, particularly, and this kind of lends itself to, your question about my favorite part of my job. My favorite part of the job is being able to work with, technology and being on the forefront of innovation, right? I think that's, at least for me, that was one of the draws of being a patent attorney, is that you get to combine, as a former engineer, your love for technology and kind of your inner science nerd side with a little bit of law. And so being able to work with engineers and being there when they are innovating and developing and creating, and then kind of having the challenge of having to quickly understand and appreciate the level of innovation across different spectrums of technologies, I think is probably the best part of what I do. I mean, it can be challenging because you are asked to understand different types of technologies at a pretty quick pace. But I think that's the challenge that I enjoy the most.
That's great. Thank you. And Dwight, I think, we've worked together now for a few years, and have really enjoyed our camaraderie, but also I think working with our inventors. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Dwight, you might be on mute again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
okay.
Much better.
All right, so I'm in a similar position as Talani, and in terms of a similar role, and I think the best part of the job is just talking to the inventor to learn new things. This is a job, if you love technology, you'll learn new things every day, and in many different areas, many different fields, especially if you work for a firm. You don't know what's coming in the door each day, and so you can learn new things each day and talk to really exciting people.
Great. Can you talk, Dwight? We end up speaking with the government sometimes as well, right? So could you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so we also have programs with the patent office as well. So we talk to examiners to help the examination process. We give them feedback. We talk to people through various parts of the patent office, and also other people in terms of people from schools and universities as well. Because one reason we're here, one reason we're on the call is to help the next generation, encourage the next generation of patent lawyers. We all need good patent lawyers, judges, patent agents, and attorneys. And so that's one thing that we're trying to accomplish today on this call.
That's great. And the examiners, just in case the audience members might not know, are folks who work for the patent office, and it's their job to take the applications that are prepared by the companies and review them and determine whether or not they actually are eligible for a patent, whether or not they're granted a patent. And so they tend to be engineers as well. And so do you find your conversations with examiners to be, be fun?
Yeah, they are fun. I mean, some examiners really get to the details and like to talk about the invention. And, we like to have our inventors on the phone as well. So they join the call with the examiners, and, we just go at it sometimes. And it's a lot of fun.
Excellent. So I see a couple of questions about online about, the role of a patent in just kind of the overall business. Why I know we kind of answered the question of why you get patent protection, but is there a more fundamental or strategic role of patents in a business? I'd like to kind of get someone's perspective. Maybe Rochelle, go back to you on kind of the strategic importance, the business importance of patents in your company.
So patents are very important to our company. We are a publicly traded company, and that's a long-winded way of saying we have shareholders who are very interested in the performance of our company. And what those shareholders are going to look to is they're going to look to see if we have patents as an asset, if we can corner the market in a particular way. And patents will allow us to have a larger market share sometimes in our space. And so Carpenter Technology, we're one of the few companies in the world who do what we do. We make specialty alloys, not just regular alloys. And when I think about alloys, I think about simply this. It's a very good testament to diversity. It's one of those areas of science where the individual metals alone may not have the ideal properties, but when a diverse group of metals come together, the synergies that are involved make an incredible solution for our customers. And so we do need to have patents to make sure others won't steal our technology. So that's the basic defensive space. But from a shareholder perspective, they want to make sure that our ideas are protected by patents because it does relate to our market share, our ability to command a certain price for our solutions and for our products, and it will give shareholders some comfort in the viability of our company, if you will. So patents are very critical to us just from a pure business standpoint. And I have been, every week I meet with our C-suite team, and those are the chief folks in a company for those of you who don't know. So we have our CEO, we have our chief operating officer, chief technology officer, we have our general counsel, who is the highest ranking attorney in our company, and we have our chief business folks, commercial folks. And I can't recall a time in our discussions where patents weren't mentioned or they're critical from just a purely strategic business standpoint.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So before we get to questions, I have a couple of other things that we want to we want to cover. And Chancellor Pierre, I'd love to hear more about how you go about recruiting and getting admitted to law school. That would be a real, I think, benefit to the folks on the phone.
Sure. One of the big things that we do in terms of law school admissions is that we try to demystify how you get into law school, especially for people with STEM backgrounds, because everybody thinks all law students come from political science or liberal arts. But we have a lot of individuals from STEM backgrounds, science, technology, engineering, math backgrounds that come into law school. So the big thing for us is to, first of all, have them understand how their rigorous undergraduate background in one of those STEM areas prepares them for the rigors of law school. So they just are just transferable skills. Once they understand that, they're very highly analytical individuals, and they can take what they have and transfer it to other areas. The next thing is we try to have them understand how law is important for them to begin to use those technology skills to create a pathway in technology. So we offer courses that really help them understand it, and we actually give them a lot of practical experiences. One of the things we do is we have a technology and entrepreneurship legal clinic where they learn how to use those skills, and we ask them to think about working in those clinics, and then also go out and prepare for the patent bar, as well as whatever state bar that they want to take, and create internships with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Actually, we have had internships for students who have gone to Apple. We're trying to create a great relationship with Facebook, Carpenter Technology, SAS, you name it. We'll try to find that opportunity for those students so that they have wonderful, really pathways. We created a great relationship with IBM. One of our recent graduates is a patent lawyer for IBM. So basically, we just try to create the ecosystem for students to be able to succeed in this system so that they can really propel themselves into patent law or any other form of intellectual property. The chief intellectual property lawyer for Hershey's is a Southern University Law Center alum. So that's what we do. We build them and we create them.
That's great. Thank you, Chancellor. That's fantastic. And again, if anyone has questions about that, please feel free to add those to the chat, or we'll kind of come to questions at the end. All right, Betsy, let's talk for a minute about scholarships. Now that we know how to get into law school and what you're going to do when you're there, let's talk about the Thurgood Marshall College Fund a little bit.
Great. Thanks so much, Tim. Danielle, if you could go to the next slide. And actually, the quote on the next slide, Dominic McCraney is actually on the call with us, which is fantastic. So the Patent Quality Training and Education Foundation, Tim is the president of that foundation, which of course he didn't mention, was created, as you can read along here, is really to help law school students understand the value and the benefit of patent law. And hopefully by the end of this call, and hopefully already, you've learned the value and the benefit of why we need patent attorneys and the value of having a patent. I know several of the questions that have come in have been specific to some questions regarding hackathons and a few other things, which we'll talk about specifically to what you've created in your undergraduate careers, but also want to talk a little bit about scholarship opportunities. And so Thurgood Marshall College Fund and the Patent Quality Training and Education Foundation, which we affectionately call PTF, have worked together to offer scholarships for students that attend the TMCF HBCU law schools. So, of course, Chancellor Pierre's Law School, which is the Southern University Law Center, but the other schools you see here, FAMU, Howard, excuse me, North Carolina Central, Thurgood Marshall School of Law, which is at Texas Southern, and the University of District Columbia Law School. So we provide scholarships for students that have a GPA of 3.0 or higher, that have a financial need, and that also are providing us with an understanding of why you think patent law is an important focus for you in your law degree. And what you can see that Dominique quoted here, she said her ultimate goal is to attain a legal career where she can use her electrical and computer engineering skills to help empower innovators to obtain patents and defend their ideas. Patents allow innovators to win the battle and focus on what truly matters, innovation. So I think what you'll see from Dominique, if you go and join LinkedIn and link in with the PTF LinkedIn page, you'll see the other scholarship winners. But what we want to do is continue to provide scholarship opportunities for students that are attending the HBCU law schools so that you can really focus on the things that are important, which is studying and taking advantage of every internship opportunity and clerking opportunity, and not have to worry so much about the financial components associated with going to law school. So if you do end up going to one of these law schools, you'll be able to see more information about the scholarship opportunities that are available to you both through the PTF website as well as through tmcf.org, and you'll hopefully be able to be a winner like Dominique. So more to come on that. Follow those websites and link in with PTF and TMCF, and you'll be able to learn more.
Thank you, Betsy. I don't have anything other than that to say, so that's terrific. What I would like to just kind of communicate to the audience is, my experience with, becoming a patent lawyer is it tends to be either random, meaning you've gone to school, you've gotten a STEM background and degree, and you decide that maybe that's not the path that you want to follow, and so you go to law school, and then you find out about this thing called patent law, and you somehow kind of chance yourself into a position. And so that's kind of one way that I hear, patent lawyers kind of coming about. And the other is that, I have somebody in my family who's also a patent lawyer, or my parent, one or the other might have been an inventor. And so, you kind of hear about patent lawyers that way, or you hear it on Shark Tank, I guess nowadays is the other area where Mr. Wonderful is asking why you shouldn't be squished like the cockroach that you are. And it's because you have a patent, and generally they don't know what they have, but in any event, we can kind of help them down the path. So the reason that, the Patent Quality Training Education Foundation exists is to try to help make it a less random process to getting into the patent career, and really show folks who are in the position of yourselves, undergraduate students, that there's more than just going out and being an engineer. Not that that's not great, or a scientist, but becoming a patent lawyer who not only makes inventions but protects those inventions for the company so that they can get the full business value out of the inventions that their folks make. So with that, I wanted to kind of transition into questions. And for this area, I'd like anyone, I'm going to kind of point to a couple of people, but I'd like anybody who has something interesting on the topic to kind of jump in, and we'll try to avoid stepping on each other, but there's going to be a little of that, I think. So the first question that I wanted to get to is, how closely do you work with inventors and engineers? And I'd like Mike, to just kind of give us the, I think we got a sense of how important patents are to Amgen and biotech companies. It's the entire business. And so talk a little bit about how your engineers and patent lawyers work together in order to protect those inventions.
So I'm on the phone every day with various scientists, not typically engineers, although we do have an engineering group for our devices. But I think, as others have said, this is a field where your career is learning. So every day you're challenged with learning a new technology, something new that you may never have come across. Remember, you're working for people who are filing on these new inventions, which are cutting edge technology. Nobody else frequently has heard of it. So you've got to get up to speed quickly and learn about it. The best way to do it, interact with your scientists, interact with your engineers. And that's where I find it's actually my comfort zone, right? So I was in the lab for about a decade. I am really comfortable talking with the scientists. It brings me back to the days when I was working at the bench, setting up assays, doing all that. So it's enjoyable for me. It's in some ways a lot more enjoyable than sitting in, a business type of meeting without scientists involved. So it's critical, and that's where having a technical background, especially if you're in-house on the prosecution side, that helps a lot.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Does anybody else have, maybe a story of working with an inventor that you might recall kind of fondly?
This is James. Yeah, not even just one. I mean, a big part of our role too, as patent litigators, involves working with our engineering and design teams very, very closely. Oftentimes, if we're on the defensive side, the best prior art or the best way to show that a patent is invalid is to demonstrate that our own folks were working on something in a really interesting and novel way before the patent was filed, or maybe that our technology works in a completely different way from what's explained in the patent. And our method of getting to that and figuring all that out is by working with our engineering teams. And kind of getting to a question that was asked earlier about the best parts of the job, that is the best part of the job, is working as a part of these teams that are kind of opening up the hood of some of our really great products and figuring out how they work. And we do that through conversations and working with our engineering team. So I would say that that's maybe one of the most important parts of what we do.
Thanks, James. Anyone else have a story of working with inventors?
Just 2 quick points, Tim. One, on the litigation side, you work very closely with your inventors, but one of the biggest things we do as litigators is what I call translate. You get street credibility if you have a scientific background, you can relate to the inventors, but the other piece of the equation is taking what they have done and translating it in a way in which the jury understands. And that is absolutely mission critical for a litigator. And so you're in the trenches working very closely with inventors. Now on the business side, I work fairly closely with our tech folks, including inventors, to understand the landscape and what the future layers of innovation will be, if you will. So oftentimes we're in review meetings and we're looking at technology, we're looking at future technology, and you got to be able to understand it from a tech perspective so that you can help set where the company should go, near term and long term. So again, at that level, it's very important to be able to work very closely with your tech folks.
Thank you, Rochelle. So that's great. I've got another question. This one is it best to go through kind of the path of going to a big law firm and then go in-house to work as a patent attorney, or is it better, or might it be better to go to the USPTO, the patent office, and then go to work in a law firm or in-house? And forgive me for not knowing this, but I should. Do we have anyone who took that latter path of working for the patent office?
Yeah, I did, Tim.
Okay, great. Maybe talk about your experience being an examiner.
Yeah, so that was my first job when I jumped out of the lab. That was going to be an examiner at the patent office. It was a great experience because you learn how the operation works from the inside out. You realize you're surrounded with some incredibly talented people who are incredibly overworked. The patent examiners do a tremendous job given the time constraints they're under. It is a very, very stressful job. Every bit as stressful as working at a law firm. You get great training though. And if that's an opportunity you have, go for it. That was the guidance I was given by, at the time I was a scientist in-house, and talking with our in-house patent attorney about career paths. He said, look, you got an offer from the patent office, go for it, because they're going to train you on how the system works better than you're going to get anywhere else. So I would recommend that if you have it as an option. It is definitely a path to take.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. Okay, Shane, I want to come back to you and just kind of, maybe high level, what kind of advice do you have for someone who might be looking at this webcast and really, kind of considering, do I, kind of go to law school now and become a patent lawyer? I mean, is that something that you would recommend, and what are your thoughts about it?
I would highly recommend it. I think just touching quickly on my background, I first heard about patent law in high school. I was going to a Saturday morning science and engineering program, and they had a patent lawyer come speak to us. Sophomore year of high school, didn't really think anything of it. Went off to law school, knew I wanted to be an electrical engineer, and then went to a NSBE meeting, and they had a patent lawyer, local patent lawyer, come and talk to us about patent law again. And that kind of sparked my interest again. Worked at IBM, saw how important patents were to IBM, and decided this is exactly what I'm going to do. This is the career field that I'm going into. So one of the first steps I ended up taking was actually reaching out to that patent lawyer that came and spoke to us spoke to the NSBE group at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. So I think kind of one strong piece of advice I would say is, if you are seriously looking at this as a career field, I think it's a great, rewarding career field with a lot of variety to it. You have both prosecutors and litigators on here as well. Go reach out to the folks on this panel, reach out to other patent lawyers, that you might be connected to through LinkedIn, or that you might see on some of the local law firms' websites. I think it's, you may have an aversion to it, but I'd strongly encourage you to do it and reach out. And I think you'd probably be surprised at how receptive a lot of these individuals are, because I think most of us have likely, been in your shoes before, and have had some interest in the field of patent law, and have really tried to find, tried to learn more. And I think it's the best way to learn more is by attending programs like this, but also reaching out to those that are in the field. So I strongly encourage you to reach out to those that are in the field, continue to do that research, and I think if you pursue it, I think you'll find this field as a great and rewarding field.
Thanks, Shane, and it's something that I really strongly believe that we all have an obligation to be mentors and identify the next generation, and I know all of the panelists on this call are from time to time in that role, and both mentors and mentees, I suppose, at some way. David, I know that's really kind of a important thing at Apple that you guys have numbers of interns and externs and folks coming through. How is that viewed as an important role at Apple?
Sure. So Apple writ large has a very big internship program. Frankly, the bulk of it is in the sciences and the engineering undergraduate programs. So our software and hardware groups have interns. But we also have roughly a dozen interns coming into the legal department this summer, both on our security side, so our investigation side, and on our lawyer side. And they're all 1L, first year, second year, and third year law school students. And, it's an interesting program in that it doesn't actually feed into any form of employment. It doesn't result in a job offer at the end of it. So we really regard it instead as a way of enriching the profession, giving folks some interesting and worthwhile experiences in the hopes that some of them may return to us years later, because we hire typically lawyers who have at least 5, 6, 7 years experience, so not folks who are immediate graduates. But we've had interns come back to us after going out into the rest of the world, working at other jobs, and then applying when they have a bit more experience under their belt. But I think it's a neat program, and there are a decent number of other in-house opportunities like that around the U.S.
Excellent.
Something that I would just quickly tack on to that too, and it gets to a point that was made earlier, is that one of the things I think that are kind of unique about the legal profession is kind of the role of mentorship. It can be very difficult to navigate, when you think about the paths that most of the people on this call have taken, where, they were maybe in government for a little while, they were at a law firm for a bit. These can be pretty difficult, challenging places to navigate and to continue to see yourself kind of rise through. And so finding people who have been down that road a ways, who can give you guidance and advice, or just kind of listen to you vent on a bad day is such an important thing. So I would definitely encourage folks on the call to think about that. Think about who those mentors might be. If you meet someone along your education, try really hard to maintain those relationships, because they really will serve you as you continue down your career.
Thanks, James. I 100% agree with that. This is all at bottom a human process, and that means there'll be a human solution to it, and that's a great thought. As we wrap up, I just want to say I hope you found this webinar to be helpful. We are really encouraging folks to explore patent as a potential career path. I want to thank each of the incredible organizations and panelists for sharing their stories and experiences with you. I'll tell you from firsthand experience, you don't see a panel like this very often, and it just kind of speaks to the importance that all of these organizations and individuals find this to be important. If you want more information about the scholarship, you can go to the Patent Training Foundation. That's all one word, patenttrainingfoundation.org, O-R-G. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with the recording. Remember, you'll get that along with a short survey. Please respond to those. And if you know of someone who might benefit from taking a look at this recording, please do send it along to them. And if you've won a coaching session or the Amazon gift card, we'll be in contact shortly. I want to thank you very much and thank all the participants and panelists for this. This has been great. So have a great day.